Hi, this is Stan Houston for What It Takes. Wit, what it takes. Wisdom, insight, and truth, and perhaps a bit of a smile. A touch of wit. And What It Takes Radio is the name of our company, and we are in the business of helping people do what it takes to make their mark, make their mission, maybe make a difference, and with a smile, maybe even make a ruckus in the world. And This is particularly for a group of my friends in Tucson, Arizona, where I kind of hang out on our Route 77. We're doing a podcast on Route 66, but we live on Route 77 here in southern Arizona. And they are involved in trying to help people discover or maybe even design their purpose in life. And that's a good question. Is your purpose in life something that God put into you, or is it something that you then need to discover? Or is it something that God is saying, hey, have a blast, design your own purpose with me in mind, my spirit to empower you? But do you design it, or do you discover it, or is it a combination of both? Let's try and work it this way. I want to tell you 3 stories. And these 3 stories will preface the fact that I'm then going to pitch you to tell you that one of the best ways to discover your purpose in life is to do exactly what I've been doing for almost a half century: a radio program, a podcast. Doing a podcast will be one of the better ways for you, perhaps, to discover or design your purpose in life. So that's the deal. Let's go. First story, number of years ago, many, many years ago, back when I was a young man, even before that perhaps, a guy named David McClellan did a good deal of research. Now, he'd actually been involved in the situation doing a relief and mission work in India. And he came back, and he was a very attractive man in the sense of his personal power and how he lived his life. And saying nothing about his physical appearance, I don't know, but he was involved in a project where they asked a key question: what does it take to be successful? Well, very carefully, most people say they'd like to be successful. Well, but most people aren't very successful. What goes into helping people be successful? And so they did a great deal of research on that, and I'm going to take all of their stuff and put it in probably a minute and a half. He said they discovered that there are basically 4 categories of people in the world. And he gave them simply a number. I've given them a title: 3%. 3%. These are the people who have power, purpose, poise, and a plan. 3%. There are 10% of the people who, their life is fairly focused. They have a good sense of intention about what they want, but it's not as clear as those 3%ers. 60% of the population: hopes, wants, wishes, um, and that's about it. Oh, they kind of deal with the day, and they can live a reasonably happy life, but they kind of come and go and flow. And then there's 27%. And these are the ones who are basically without a dream, without hope. They're clueless. And those were the categories he discovered back in the 50s and 60s. And when I've shared this with people, particularly with teachers, they kind of say, you know what? We don't even think it's that high anymore. We think that the bottom is the high part. There's just too many kids who don't have plans or purpose, who know who they are or what they're about. And the people who really have purpose, poise, power, and a plan. And that means they really know who they are, what God has called them to be, what they're going to do. And they have very powerful, emotional aspirations and goals. And they know how to gain the confidence and poise and the ability to live well to achieve those goals and plans. 3%. First question we ask people is, what do you think you are? where would you want to be? Second, all right, here we go. Number two. One of my favorite films goes back a few years ago, and it was called Chariots of Fire. And it was about a man who was a real man who was very well known and known for his spirit. His name was Eric Liddell. And in effect, he had been born of missionary parents in China. And then, along with his sister, had left China to go back and get his education. This was back in the 20s, early 20s, in England. And it turns out that Eric, as he was going through school, found out that he liked to run. And he had terrible style, but he was incredibly fast. And he started to win races and win races. And eventually the movie is about the fact that he wins a place on the British Olympic team and goes to compete in the 1924 Olympics. And because of his Christian convictions, he refuses to run the first race because it's on Sunday. You may know the story, but you ought to look it up if you haven't. It's an incredible story. But at one time in the story, his sister Jenny is after him because they had been holding meetings in their village and in their town around the college. And they're picking up the books from the meeting they had. And all of a sudden, she really goes after her brother Eric. And it turns out she says, "Eric, all this running stuff." And of course, she was afraid that he would put running ahead of his mission to go back to China. That's what they were there for, to learn so they could go back as missionaries in China, just like their mother and father, their family. And he comforts her and challenges her. And this wonderful saying, "Jenny, don't you know God made me fast, and when I run, I feel his pleasure." When do you feel God's pleasure? Ever thought about that? Ever been aware of that? Ever thought about feeling God's pleasure? Okay, are you one of the 3%? Do you know what it is when you feel God's pleasure? Then a gentleman has influenced me. His name is Frederick Buechner. He's a writer. I think he's still alive, but I'm not going to say for sure. He's even a bit older than me. Frederick Buechner's a wonderful Christian writer. I would really encourage you to look some of his work. But he challenged me greatly when he said that we are not called to a career. We are called to a vocation. And what is our vocation? And he had this great expression. Your vocation could be where God's, what? God's great pleasure has given you a deep gladness. What is your deep gladness? Because what you should do is do what your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger need. What's your deep gladness? What's the world's deep hunger? What does the world need? What does it want? Put them together, and where they meet, that's where you should be. I could tell you the fourth story, and this is about the mentor to Martin Luther King Jr., wonderful man, Howard Thurman. And he was the one who said, "Don't ask what you should do. Ask what makes you become fully alive, and then do that, because what the world really needs is men and women who are fully alive." Would you let those four stories sit on your head for a while and perhaps want to pursue them and learn more about them, because that will help you do whatever it might be that you're going to do. Now, there are all kinds of workshops that people offer, and life coaches come in and they will test you and analyze you and question you and all kinds of things. And all of that can be very helpful and very useful. I used to do it myself, and I was pretty good at it, but I'm a little bit different now. I'm going to suggest that what you need to do is say, okay, as I one time did, what if you could have a Super Bowl commercial and you had 60 seconds to tell people about you? And hopefully they would follow you or buy from you. What would you say in your 60-second commercial. Ever thought about doing that? By the way, if you run a business or are self-employed, for sure, you should do that. You should be able to tell people in 1 minute who you are, what you do, and how good you are, and demonstrate it, and call for the buy. Close the deal. Can you do that? Think about that. That might be a fun thing to do. Do your Super Bowl commercial. But I'm going to encourage you to say, I have been given the opportunity to do 3 to 5 programs, a podcast, usually about 20 minutes. And I can make my podcast about anything I want. I can speak about anything I want. I can talk about anything I want. I can teach about anything I want. But I have been challenged to tell others in 3 to 5 to 7, maybe 10, 15, 20-minute talks what's truly important. And what is only not just important, but is helpful and useful and attractive to people. I'm going to challenge you. If you want to find out what your purpose in life might be, why don't you do that? I'll be glad to help you. First, you have to learn a little bit about what it means to be a podcaster. And first of all, that's to discover a little bit about who you are. And of course, it also is about what you want to talk about. And who do you want to talk to? What are the goals you have for achieving a time where you would make friends and grow in influence and impact because you were given the opportunity, and people had the opportunity to hear you express your wisdom, your insight, your truth in such a way that they would say, tell me more. Could I follow you? I'd like to be like you. All of those things might be helpful to you. So I'm just going to simply conclude with this comment. If you want to know a little bit more about what your purpose in life might be, why don't you listen to my stories, think about them, and then why don't you decide that I am going to do a podcast. I'm going to do some podcasts. I'm going to have the courage to stand up and get in front of the camera or get in front of a microphone, learn how to do it well, and I'm going to put my message, my wisdom, my insight, my truth, the things that are important to me, and I'm going to put them out in the world and see what happens. And I guarantee you, something will happen. Something profound might happen. And in fact, you might just say, now I know. Now I know. Now it's clear to me. This is how I was made. This is how I was designed. This is what I have discovered. And this is my purpose. And I better start doing it right now. I hope that could happen for you. If I can help you, just let me know. My name is Stan the spokesman. I'll be glad to help you. StanHouston@gmail.com. StanHouston@gmail.com. And I know something you are supposed to do. You are always supposed to bless others. That's part of your purpose in life. You are made to bless others. And you either bless them or you curse them. They're better off because of you or they're worse off because of you. So I hope this has been helpful and useful to you. And I wish you all the best. And may you and your family and your business be profoundly blessed. Till we talk again, bye for now.